First one up. Hi, Josh. What are you talking about? Dax got you banned. From what? What's up, everybody? You're banned on IG. What's up? Just getting set up here. Oh, I hate IG Live. Favorite Creed song, huh? I don't even know Creed song titles. There's one I like, I just can't remember the name of it. Here we go. No, I'm not ordering the Waza HM2. Don't need that. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, dude, how's it going?
Oh, just fighting with IG Live.
Yeah, and it's it's always a fucking battle.
Every single time.
Yeah, man.
I don't know what's
So
wrong.
how you doing? What's going on in your neck of the woods?
Uh, Not a hell of a lot. It's just been a rainy, kind of lazy day for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, what's up, Sinister Metal Guitars? It's Justin. Got a few people on here. Uh, hey, same question for you. Have you ordered the? Are you going to order the Boss HM2 Waza?
Oh man, I don't know. Probably just for shits and giggles. I mean, I feel like I got to, if at the very least, just to throw it up on like the Extreme Gear Review channel,
Right?
just to like give it a rip. What about you? What do you think?
I don't need it.
No one needs it. That's the whole point,
Yeah,
Like,
right. Like,
I don't.
huh? Go ahead.
I said I don't know, man. I think it's really cool that these that these pedals keep kind of getting reissued and all this kind of stuff, man. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know, like there's like a certain point where you just got to like accept that these pedals aren't that good. At the end of the day, they sound cool, but like they're just not that practical. So.
It's it's I don't know. I think it's hard to kind of dial in to where you can actually tell what's going on. Um, the I kind of like what who was I was already talking to somebody about this, but I kind of like the way Entombed started doing it after like they became Entombed AD, where
Yeah,
they were using like more amp gain and almost using it like an EQ in front of
yeah,
the amp.
yeah.
And I've got like a 8-ball EQ from Lone Wolf, and
Hmm.
you run. It's like I mean, it's like his version of that circuit. You run in the loop of your amp and make your amps gain to just like a big 100-watt HM2.
Yeah. That sounds cool. That sounds cool. I used to have a bandmate who used to put one in and then use one of those BBE sonic maximizers.
Mm-hmm.
And again, very similar, man. He would crank up the gain on his amp, and he was going through a Mesa, and then he would just kind of dial in the boss just to kind of give it like a weird kind of almost like an old school bloodbath kind of sound, and then the
Yeah.
maximizer would just give it that right amount of clarity to cut through in the mix. So
Huh.
it was pretty cool. It was a cool sounding rig.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, speaking of gear, do you got any? Are you at your practice space or anything, or?
No, I'm actually at home tonight right now, so I'm just like in like my actual office for work and stuff.
Nice.
So yeah. What about, so you're at home right now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is like my little music room, office room, whatever you want to call it. I refuse to call it a studio because that's just a little conceited.
Yeah. Well, studios now are like could be anything, man. Some kid with a Focusrite too, and that's exactly what their studio is. So.
Pretty much, and sounding better and better too. Funny enough.
Yeah, it's not bad, man. Like for our newest album, we did like a mix of things, and some of which was like recording DIs at home because of the pandemic. We weren't able to here in Canada. The lockdown restrictions were really strict for a very long time. In fact, right now, man, like we're still in lockdown. Like things aren't even open up fully still. So. We actually had to just switch it up and record guitars at home, like through, direct impulse, which is like very common, but for us, super new. It was all new territory, but very very common, and it actually turned out not too bad. At the end of the day, like we reamped through like real amps and all that usual stuff, and it sounds pretty badass, but
Yeah,
it was really weird.
that's the other beauty of stuff these days is you can always reamp too.
Yeah.
Some people said that it's kind of weird reamping. Like it's not as you know you can use any amp period when you're reamping. Just because every amp has different dynamics and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So your take or like you're playing on whatever take you use might not work with every single amp. So
Well, dude, that was the biggest thing, man, when recording the guitar tracks for the album because we were using like amp sims, like to kind of get at first, and like the attack and the whole feel of playing was just throwing things just slightly off, like we weren't getting the right feel, and then we've someone kind of showed us how to go through the amp and then send a clean signal out through that, and playing through like the real amplifier had like a whole different response
right.
to it. And so yeah, man, I think that kind of stuff is really important, because like we're so used, we don't write in Guitar Pro, we didn't even have click tracks for this last album. Like we
Oh
just
wow.
we just jam, and that's how we write our stuff. So when we were like trying to record stuff like through direct impulses and all that, like it just didn't sound real. We not I wasn't getting like that wall of sound, that like I love. You feel the amp, when you're cranked it up and when you're cranking it up in the room, and you
Yeah.
just don't get that. I just wasn't getting that from like recording, silently at home, and it was really different, and it affected my playing, I think, quite a bit.
Wow.
So, back to like what you're saying, when you're reamping, yeah, I mean, like the take, like your attack and your playing that you're kind of going through will sound obviously different, through different amps. Even some settings that we had that we really loved,
Hmm.
we had to tweak because, just like the attack was different. Because like when you're playing through DI, like you're attacking to compensate for like this the amp sound that you're getting through the computer and shit. It was just super weird for us. For me, it was like the first time, so it was really weird.
Gotcha. That, that's funny. I because granted, I haven't got to record at a bigger studio like you guys, but just at like the local band level, I've had like almost the opposite experience. It's funny. Like I remember my old band. It was like a thrash band, and we tracked Live Room, and I mean it didn't sound bad, but when I kind of did like a little one man death metal thing, and I just
Hmm.
did everything here at home using like all digital stuff. Uh, I like the sound of it a lot better. Like,
Yeah,
and I've gone back
yeah,
and
yeah.
listened to both of them. I'm like, man, like I didn't like my guitar tone. I mean, there's a million factors playing into that, but Yeah, I don't know. It's just funny, you know.
Man, I totally hear you. I like Deformatory is my main band, but over the years I played in a whole pile of projects, and every project had like a different approach. And I think one of my favorite things that I've ever recorded was again very similar. There was almost nothing that was real. Like even the drums are programmed.
Really.
It was just like a brutal death thing, but
Yeah.
it sounded fucking like absolutely killer. And I haven't been able to replicate that since, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
What band was that? I'm curious. I want to check it out now.
Yeah,
Good.
so there's a band called Dyslebia, like a one-man thing. Probably know of them. And then a band I was in for a bit called Placentophagia.
Sorry, that's awesome.
Yeah. And like, and we had a chick vocalist, right? Like, anyway, she's usually people make a big deal, like female fronted, but we just thought she loved the whole theme of it, and really went to town, like on stage, like ripping stuff out and getting all bloody and just like having a good time. So yeah, it was a rad little project for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But when like going back to like this live versus digital and stuff, like we love obviously like all of the modern production stuff. I mean, like it's hard not to. The stuff just sounds absolutely killer. Like you could be nostalgic all,
Yes.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like you could be nostalgic all you want, like and just love the like the Scott Burns stuff all you want.
Yeah.
Like that's awesome. But the stuff that's coming out and has been coming out for a while sounds absolutely crushing, and we love that shit. But for us, because we're a little like old school in our approach, we love the chaos that like the raw live in the room kind of sound that we get, right? Like where the tempos are kind of speeding up, you're like on the verge, you know what I mean, of like going off the rails. And we love that feel, we love like that energy. So the trick is like, how do you capture that energy where you're like not teetering on like the grid, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of going that, but you're capturing like excellent production at the same time.
Gotcha.
So we got really lucky, I think, this time around with this album because we locked in with Topon Dawes, who plays in Fuck the Facts, and he runs a studio. Fuck the Facts is like a grindcore band, and they've been around. They've been around forever.
Okay. I know I've seen that name. I mean, I don't have my ear to the ground or thumb on the pulse, whatever analogy.
Yeah.
Or nearly as much. But I think that's kind of the point too.
Exactly. Yeah, man. Like they're a totally rad band. They've been around, like I said, for forever, like since the '90s, and they have a massive DIY ethic, like something that's beyond comprehension. Like just such a hardworking band. And for a bit they were signed to Relapse and stuff, and then they dropped that nonsense and doing their own thing. But the main guy in that band, he runs a studio here locally here in town called Apartment 2 Recording. And what's killer about that is like this guy knows, like he's really into the music, and he's super chill and laid back. Like when we went in to record this album, we actually got click tracks made because like we know that's what audio engineers want, you know what I mean? So we actually got them done right before we went in, and he realized right away that we were like way out of our element in the sense of comfort. He said, well, if you guys don't play through clicks, or if that's not your thing, drop it and let's just go organically.
Yeah.
And honestly, we were able to capture that like live feel, that chaotic energy that we go for, while still getting like absolutely killer production. And that so fortunately we locked in with someone who got it. You know what I mean?
My old band, we had to do the exact same thing. My drummer was not jiving with the click track at all. So,
yeah.
And the producer we had, he was more of like classic rock, southern rock, just old school everything.
Yeah.
And so he had no, not even a second thought about ditching the click track and everyone else in my band was at least like 10 years older than me at the time. So they all had more 90s kind of approach to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really care. And it was like one of those thrash bands that teetered on hardcore. Because
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
where I'm from, there's a huge punk and hardcore scene. So it was a lot of DIY kind of mentality and a lot of bare bones, don't need anything too fancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I absolutely, I get it. I mean, it's funny though, whenever I do it though, I'm so like meticulous and I don't know. I let my control freak tendencies kind of come out whenever I'm by myself.
Well, man, I'll tell you that was the most challenging part, man, of recording this album because we did the tracks like I record all the guitars and bass at home, and that was the first time I was like alone behind the controls. I'd never did that shit before. I never recorded myself before, and I was running into like this the issue like wanting it to be like 100% perfect. But I was working with, drum tracks and like the feel that was live. There was nothing to the grid. So I totally get where you're coming from,
Right.
where you could just like you could spend a lifetime working on an album and never get it out if you want to, get it super perfect.
You can get lost down the rabbit hole real easy. Like,
Oh yeah.
like there's still, for my little EP, I left the vocals a little too loud.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I was so fatigued because it was my first time like mixing completely by myself and all that.
Yeah, that's a lot, man.
I was just so burnt out, and I'm like, I know I'll just keep going forever if I don't just settle, So in hindsight, I'm like, I could have lowered the level a tad though.
Yeah, hindsight is always 2020 when it comes to this stuff. Like after a while.
Exactly. Well, man, so when shows do become a thing,
Yeah, man.
which do you all have anything scheduled yet?
We got nothing scheduled yet. Like I said, things here in our part of Canada is like just starting to open up. Like we still can't even go and get haircuts. Like salons are still closed. Like it's still really messed up.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they're really taking their time. So like nothing's been concrete. So until everything is open, for good, and like there's no possibility of them taking that stuff away again, we're not even thinking about it right now, to be honest. But as soon as that opens up, man, we can't wait. It's been way too long. Even just like let alone playing a show, just going and seeing a show. It's been like way too damn long.
Yeah. No.
Like how like you're down in the Carolinas or something like that, right?
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Sorry about that. So
No,
so what's it like? What's it like down there? Like are shows happening right now or?
I haven't. You know what? I think one of my friends did have a show here recently. I haven't gone to any, so I'm starting to see pictures. Like I know Frozen Soul. I know they did a show in Sangasuka Bog, and I know Crowbar had a show not too long ago. Like you're seeing little ones pop up.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the stipulations to those are. If they're like, doing the whole, you can have your mask down if you're vaccinated, and people are like, oh, okay. We're like, what the deal is? Like,
yeah. Oh man.
I have a feeling there's gonna be a lot of that.
Yeah. Oh.
Because most places, it's really funny. Most places, I guess, think it's a HIPAA violation to ask for it, like just actual regular businesses.
Yeah.
But it isn't. Like,
dude, it's so messed up, man. Like, I still am having like a hard time wrapping my head around it sometimes. Like how so much got fucked up in all this. You know what I mean? And so yeah, so when it comes to thinking about shows or planning shows, and like right now we're in the starting of promo campaign for a brand new album, and we don't even have shows planned, or we're not even thinking about it. That's really messed up. You know what I mean? Like that's a first for us. We've never thought of it.
Yeah, it's the internet age helps a little bit in that regard, I suppose. You know what I mean? Like you can at
Yeah.
least get some word out there, and you can do some legwork and really push stuff and do like interviews and podcast type stuff. And but I'm sure
Yeah.
it's not nearly the same as hitting the road. Um,
No, man, it's completely different, and you know, like we're a live band. Like we write all of those tracks to be written for this album were written in a rehearsal space where we jam out. Like there's
right.
no songs pre-written at home, nothing in Guitar Pro, like none of that stuff. So, you know, we're a crank it to 10 and fucking go for it kind of band, and
Right.
we love dishing it out live, and we love like that's what we love. And so, yeah, it's a bit different releasing an album without having the ability to really plan for that, even locally. So I think, what we decided to do was we're releasing basically a video for every song on the album,
Oh wow.
which
That's
is like a lot. Yeah, man, it's really fun. It's a lot of work, especially for like, we're a duo now. We used to be 5 people in the band. Now it's just the two of us. So yeah, it's a lot of work for just like 2 people who, have full-time careers and like do all that usual stuff.
right.
But fuck, we can't play live, we can't do a lot of things. So we're gonna just try and get like as much of the vision of this album out there through video and other things like that. So
Are
really different.
are they all going to be like like big production? Well, like produce music videos with you all, or is it going to be a mix of that with like visualizer kind of stuff, or
Yeah, man, like the whole gamut, the whole gamut. So we have some really artistic stuff that we got done by a really talented videographer based in Poland called Charlie of Black Moth, and he does like it's like rapid fire black and white, like frenetic, crazy, chaotic imagery. And so we got him to do a video like with that style, with shots of us playing like peppered in, like spliced in, like split second kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And for that video, we actually got John de Vassar from Cryptopsy, from None So Vile, the guy who wrote like basically None So Vile and Whisper
Mhm.
Supremacy and all that shit.
Yeah,
So
love
he
that.
actually, yeah, man, that guy, honestly, dream come true for us, to be honest. So we asked him to do a solo, and we weren't even too sure if he was going to even answer, because who the fuck are we? And this guy's like pretty much, for us here in Canada, like in death metal, this guy's a legend, and he's kind of reclusive to a certain extent. Like, he's off the grid. He's not on social media, so found him on some random forum. Didn't even know if it was actually him. Just could have been some guy saying it was him. Who fucking knows? But sure
Right.
enough, man, he listened to the track, and it was totally inspired by old school Cryptopsy, and he was right on board. So with that, we got him. We were able to shoot some standalone video with him and get all that stuff spliced in. So we got like 2 videos done by Charlie of Black Moth out of Poland, which is like a mix of stuff that we recorded here in Canada, whether it's the band, and we did some like drone shots in the middle of winter with like a body tied to a tree, like some crazy shit. And we got him to like kind of splice in our images because we have like specific, like
Yeah.
a theme for it. And then we have a video actually coming out on Monday that's done by Rivada Visuals. They're a company that's based in Finland, I believe. They actually just they were the guys behind the newest Fear Factory video.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you checked that out, but
Is
super
it the
talented.
is it like the real futuristic, like almost
That's
like
it.
Terminator? Yeah,
That's it, man.
I just watched that. If not last night, the night before.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
It
yeah.
was
So,
awesome.
like those guys are super super talented. So we got them to do again more of like an artistic kind of imagery based video, and it turned out exactly it fits the song and everything perfectly. So we got a mix of shit like that. We got some playthrough videos. We got a bunch of stuff. But basically, the idea is every song of the album is going to have like an associated video for it, which is our way of kind of trying to make it try and make the most out of releasing an album during the pandemic.
Yeah, do what you can do.
Yeah, man.
Do you when shows do pick back up, do you know what your live rig is going to look like?
Oh, I know what my live rig, like how I want it to look like. But live versus in the rehearsal space, I always try and keep it really simple. Live obviously, because we're an underground death metal band. We're no one, so we're playing we're playing dive bars. We're playing the scummiest places you can imagine. So I'm not going to bring like my Omega rig. You know what I mean? I won't be bringing like the Aristides guitar over, like things like that. But at the same time, like the live rig that I've been using forever is super simple but super powerful. It's just 5150 overdrive, tuner pedal, boost pedal for leads, and a cabinet. Like there's nothing to it. So I think that likely for live rigs, I'm just going to keep it the same. Just keep it all super standard. And usually for headlining, obviously we're supplying backline and stuff like that to other openers and whatever. So 5150s everyone's kind of played through, and Mesas everyone's played through and stuff like that. So.
Hell yeah, that's I'm trying to start a new band right now. We're just kind of writing right now. Don't even have a name yet. Several of us are. We've played our fair share of shows. A couple of us have like actually toured and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And but then our it's kind of cool. Our drummer, he's a pretty young guy. He's never got to play out in a band or anything before. So we've been kind of I guess sort of grooming him in a way, getting him ready for what it's actually going to be like.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting because like he'll talk about stuff that he's wanting to do, like getting like a bigger rack for his drum kit and wanting to bring, what did he say? I think he said like he wanted to bring like he wanted to get a mic kit. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, that'd be cool for like, studio stuff. And he's like, yeah, I was going to bring it to shows. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, I was wanting to do like 11 to 12 mics to bring.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
sound guys are going to love him, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like,
fuck.
I was like, dude, he's like, well, don't be surprised when we play like gymnasiums and there's like no mics at all for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Oh, fuck. And I love drummers, but I'm always so happy, that I chose guitar when I was a kid, when I was starting, because I wanted to be a drummer, man. Like, and still at heart, you know what I mean? Like when I watch Neil do what he does behind the kit, I'm like so jealous. I'm like, I wish I could do that stuff, because he's just a fucking beast of a drummer, and he makes it so easy. Neil like barely moves. Like you don't even know if he's actually drumming. He's just so still, fucking in control, 100%. But man, the biggest deterrent is watching these guys lug their shit, up the venue stairs. You know what I mean? It's just so much work. But yeah, man,
they've got like the big rack of stuff that another bandmate might help them take down to the floor just to get it off stage, and then they go through a 20-minute process of disassembling and putting crap up.
Well, dude, as much as like the setup and teardown part of shows like sucks when you've been doing a lot of them, fuck, I kill to do that. Like, I've seen those like memes and stuff. People just sit, like pretending to bring their bass rig up the stairs of their home and just like mimic what it's like doing a show. Like I would do that in a heartbeat right now because I'm missing it so much.
Somebody made one. It was like a guy trying to pick up a hooker. He's like, will you please ask me for a guest list or something?
Oh, dude, that's fucking funny.
Awesome.
But yeah, our drummer's also a lefty, right? So like you know when you're doing shows with other bands, like it's common to
Hmm.
share the same kit. You know, you just
Right.
swap up your whatever your snare
Yeah.
and whatnot. But Neil's a lefty who plays like on a very customized kind of rack. So
Oh
no
yeah.
matter what show we're playing, like we're setting up the rack as the bands are playing and lifting this whole thing up. It's jokes, just lifting the whole thing up, bring it onto the stage. But yeah, as much as we hate it in the moment, like I would kill to do it right now again.
Right. It's like half hour for load in your set and load out. But yeah, it sounds pretty good now for sure.
Man, like that's like the thing about shows that I like people who don't play in like local bands or small bands like don't always get or don't always get to see, you know? It's like when you got a show and you're opening, you got like a 30-minute set. What
Yeah.
goes into that 30-minute set is like weeks and weeks of practicing, then almost half your day to load up your gear, drive it down to the venue, get there early, set it up, do all that stuff, play for like 30 minutes, usually way faster than you ever anticipated. So you're really done in 25 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're so jacked.
Yeah.
Like I mean, all of that is like super. It's part of the fun. It's super exhausting, but man, like fuck, I wouldn't have it any other way. I would love, like I said, man, I'm yearning it so much right now. I'm thinking of just loading all my gear out somewhere and just hooking it up and playing. Just
Right.
fuck it.
Always having to try to decide the day before. All right, if we gotta cut songs, which ones are we cutting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
always.
all that.
Yeah.
Got every little. I haven't got to play. Maybe like little. Um, I don't know, little one-off things here and there, where I'm just kind of playing for somebody, um,
Hmm.
or playing like the little Sunday morning church gig kind of stuff. Uh, Other than that, which doesn't count, I haven't played like a legit show since right before my first son was born in 2014.
Oh man, that's a while. That's a long time.
Yeah,
Damn.
uh, it's been a minute, so I'm
Damn.
pretty excited to get this one off the ground and actually get out there again.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I definitely feel you there. That's a long time. 2014. Fuck, man.
Yeah, it
So
was.
what are you playing these days? Like, well, what's your main like? First of all, I gotta say, man, I've told you this before in private. Like, I love your channel, and I love that you're just
Thanks, dude.
posting killer rigs, killer gear all the time. I love it. I absolutely love it. But man, what are you playing? Like, what's cooking in your backyard? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Um, well, I basically have kind of two setups going right now, and one's basically all analog, all old school goodness, and with the huge pedal board Doom, and the other one is like an old Tube Works Most Valve power
Oh,
amp
sweet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool.
and an HX Stomp, and that's
Oh
it.
shit, dude, that's wicked. That's fucking wicked.
And yeah, it's sick right now. So far with this band, I'm really only using about 3 or 4 sounds. Um, like I got the clean sound, a rhythm sound. Uh, I could use a lead sound for some parts. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any solos or anything yet. And then like a dry plus an octave, like octave down
Okay.
sound.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
And our singer's like me and the other guitar player. It's like a lot of like kind of more progressive stuff like Mastodon and Converge, not not death metal surprisingly, but yeah, I love everything that's heavy, and so we're using like 3 different tunings right now.
Shit.
Yeah, um,
So yeah.
it's
So that. So that. So that. like downshifter, your octaver is gonna be handy for that stuff. Yeah.
It well, they're not that weird of tunings. They're basically the Mastodon tunings. So there's like D standard, just regular whole step down, drop C, which no big deal there, and then the third tuning, all the strings are still a whole step down, but your bottom string you tune it all the way down to A.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and
Interesting.
and what it does is on your bottom two strings, you can still do like a power chord shape or like an
Mm-hmm.
like an E minor shape or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually an octave instead of a root and a fifth. Um, so
Sounds pretty gnarly, man. That sounds awesome.
it's pretty cool. Like Mastodon uses it for like Iron Tusk and Mother Puncher and stuff like some of like their heavier, sludgier tunes. Um, it's pretty cool. I think we've only got one song in that tuning so far, and I'm starting to think we may have to ditch it, unfortunately, just because our bass player only has like a 4 string, and I don't know how
Bass
well it's
players.
like. If he had a 5, we could probably pull it off,
Yeah.
but I don't know if a 4 string tuned to D standard or drop C is really gonna handle dropping that bottom down to A. It's just gonna sound just like all you'll hear is like string noise, I think. Um, but yeah, so I
That's pretty
think
cool, man. Yeah, I've never gotten into that side. Like, I never listened to. I couldn't even pick out a Mastodon song, unfortunately. But all that stuff sounds really cool, man. It's great that you're experimenting with different tunings and going the fucking distance with that. That sounds awesome.
and in the meantime, I'm still writing death metal on my own, and I kind of have my own like one man project, I guess. That I'm doing like 7 string kind of riffing and all that stuff. So
Nice, man.
I kind of get to vent all that out through that outlet.
That's
So
great. That's great.
3 tuning, 6 guitars. Nope, 1 guitar. 1 guitar for all that. I did just pre-order. Um, I don't know if you've seen my post or anything, but it's a Woodwright Warlord. Um, do you remember those old First Act custom shops at all?
Like a little bit, man. It wasn't really my thing, but
Yeah,
I saw your post, so I kind of know what you're
at
talking about.
Silverburst.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think that's going to be the main for this band, and I'll use like an LTD Eclipse as my backup.
Okay, that's sweet. Yeah, that's some great guitars. That's awesome.
Uh, all right, we'll direct this back to you. You're who we're here to talk about. Uh, so, is there? We kind of all tend to. Hang on a second. Tell you right there. 2 guitars for each tunings. Tell your wife the interweb said you had to. I could probably do that now. Honestly, I got like a whole rack of guitars and different tunings right now. Um, anyway, so we kind of all
Yeah.
at least start off, like, oh, I want to sound just like my favorite band,
Yeah.
stuff like that, and our taste is sculpted over the years. Where do you kind of get your inspiration for your tone? Whether obviously we were talking, live shows,
Hmm.
you kind of tend to compromise maybe a tad,
Yeah.
or go for more convenience than as opposed to the giant pedal board of doom and a stereo, 2 half stack or 2 full stacks in stereo, all that crap, and the giant refrigerator rack. Might not do all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, I think the cool thing is, like, I'm a one trick pony kind of guy, like, tone wise. Like in Deformatory, we don't really do like, there's no clean passages. There's nothing really like that. So the rig itself, like the sound that we're going for, is really simple
Hmm.
to begin with. So it's easy to replicate in the sense. A few like people that I've seen or bands that I've seen play live whose guitar tones blew me away
Hmm.
was like Eric Rutan with Hate Eternal. And again, like the guy's just a monster. Like he was, single guitar player. When I saw them live, it was just, he was the only guitar player and he had, you know, Marshalls on both sides of the stage, and they were both coming out. It just sounded wicked. And seeing Nile play live, like their guitar tone just like absolutely pummeling and ultra clear. So for us in Deformatory, for a long time we were playing live without a bass player. So we
Okay.
it was just two guitars. So I tended to have much more of like a bass heavy, or like basically let's crank the resonance up on the 5150 and make that cabinet like really boom type of thing. And I just really grew accustomed to that. You know what I mean? So
Right.
um, but yeah, but one of the guitar tones that impressed me the most out of anyone, and I sometimes I don't talk about it as much, man, is I saw Cannibal Corpse back in the '90s when they were still doing like their usual stuff, but they were playing stuff off the Bleeding, which was like an E sharp, that old school
Hmm.
kind of stuff. And it was the best when they were playing stuff from like their older repertoire, like the Bleeding, Butchered, all that stuff. It was the clearest I'd ever heard that kind of music at that level, right? And I remember like really at that time I was younger, all that stuff. So I just like hung around and waited to talk to Jack Owen to really kind of ask him, like
Yeah.
what are your settings, like all that kind of stuff. And man, it was simple. It was ultra simple, and it was the biggest takeaway for me for tone was you could achieve these amazing, crazy sounds with really simple setups and rigs.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of been the major inspiration, just kind of keeping it simple.
I I'm pretty convinced that that guy will have God tone no matter what he plays through.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player. Like even I think he's like doing he's doing all sorts of weird stuff. He's really he's a really well-rounded guitar player. But even seeing him play with Deicide back when he was I don't is he still with them? I forget.
Six
No,
feet
eh?
under, 6 feet under now.
6 feet under now. Okay, fuck. Gets
Yeah.
around, eh? But yeah, so when,
Yeah.
when I when I saw him play with Deicide again, when his like leads would kick in, like undeniable sound and tone
Right.
live. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. That guy can make anything sing.
Uh,
But I think aside from like live sounds, like from like a in rehearsal space, my biggest influence would be still John Navassar from Cryptopsy, because like there's a lot of like great videos of them jamming at like the rehearsal space when they were writing
mhm,
like None So Vile and writing Whisper Supremacy,
mhm.
and the sound off of that VHS, recording of them jamming is just absolutely ridiculous, and I've always loved the tone coming off of like those albums.
Yeah.
So I think I've always like hoped that my guitar sound would get close to that. You know what I mean?
Right. Uh, I mean, just from a listener's perspective, I hear some like Hoffman esque kind of influence too in your tone a bit. You
Oh
know.
man, that absolutely. One of my favorite albums for a long time was the live Deicide album, right? And like when
Okay.
you listen, I forget what it's called now. Fuck, if someone knows, they'll probably put up a comment. But I remember the sound, like if they're playing like Bastards of Christ and like some of those sounds, those songs, their guitar tone was just like super scooped and like almost like kind of like super trebly and shrill. But I loved it. And for years I never played with any mids. I just had the treble like cranked right up. Just you
Right.
know what I mean? Loved it. So yeah, I'm not surprised that you're hearing some of that stuff in there.
Dude, I was the same. I played one of the JCM 2000s there for a while, and I think I copied like like even for like the thrash band, I copied like Carl Sanders, who was just very very scooped. Whenever
Yeah.
like him and Dallas, whenever they would use those, and had to learn pretty quickly. If the other guitar player is doing like mostly mids and going for like this warm sound, me coming in with like this ice pick Marshall kind of sound, it doesn't really blend together.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, like learning how to play as a band, right, and like and mixing really well and finding like where everyone should be sitting is something I think, yeah, you have to kind of like build into. But personally, I love that sound, and
Yeah,
like, and I love the way guitar sounds. Like I love like a super fast, trem picked, palm muted, scooped sound. Like to me it sounds killer. I love it. I know tonally, it probably sounds like junk, especially in a mix. But I love it. I'll play through that stuff all day.
oh yeah. Uh, Other than like death metal, I know kind of funny like industrial metal kind of goes for a lot of like almost a similar like very harsh, very metallic, very scooped kind of sound. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that they love like Rammstein's guitar tone and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah, man. And Rammstein's first album, their guitar tone sounds really cool, like really cool. And I don't know if you listen to black metal at all, but
Yeah, sure. I
yeah.
listen to
So
everything.
yeah, that's what it seems like. You seem way more well-rounded than I am. I'm strictly like a death metal guy that
Like
limited there.
I was a jazz major at college. Just
Oh,
to put
okay.
just to put it in perspective, not to brag or flex or nothing.
No, no, that's no flex, man. It's really cool. I wish, I started off playing classical guitar. Like that's when I first started when I was like 11.
That's
But then,
cool.
it, but then I picked up the bleeding at 12 years old, and then I just started playing death. I just wanted to play the bleeding ever since. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was it in terms of like classical influence. But one of the albums that I love the most is this album by a band called Thorns. It's their self-titled album,
I don't know.
and the guitar.
I don't know.
You have to check it out, man. If you're digging at industrial, this is like industrial meets black metal. It's got Hellhammer on drums, like some of
Oh
like
shit.
some of the craziest drumming you're gonna hear, just absolutely killer. But
Wow.
that guitar tone on that Thorns album, man, I love it to death. I wish that I could write an album that sounded like that. But again, it's different. It's really scooped. It's really like kind of like almost annoying in the ear, but it's that sound just like does something to me. You know what I mean? I just love
Yeah.
it. It feels so aggressive.
You want to know a really sick uh, guitar tone, and he's been pretty consistent about it for a long time now. Is Tom Warrior, like Celtic Frost and Triptychon, uh, the Monotheist, like the last Celtic Frost album, Monotheist. Have you heard that one?
Probably, yeah. We have a lot of Celtic Frost on rotation. Yeah.
Yeah, but just like that sound of his, I guess he gets it from like rolling the tone knob all the way off on his Ibanez, his Icemans and stuff, and just Marshall and Tube Screamer, like nothing crazy. He just dials it in weird, and it is the most unique sounding tone. Like no one else really. And if anyone does try to sound like that, everyone's like, okay, he's just trying to copy
Yeah.
Tom
Fair
Warrior.
enough. Yeah,
Uh,
man.
and it's like this. They kind of always integrated, at least after a certain point, tried to go like a little bit of that industrial thing mixed in with their more old school kind of approach. But my God, so there's certain songs off of the Monotheist album and then the Triptychon stuff like that. It's some of the I'd say top. I'll put it in my top 20. Like
Okay.
just
Yeah, yeah,
heaviest shit
nice.
I've ever heard.
Dude, man, yeah, it's funny, man, how some things that probably shouldn't sound good just hit you. And I think, it's like tone is one thing, but like the energy, right? We're like back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, like when you're recording, at least for us, when we were recording something, if we weren't able to like really kind of feel, get that response back from the amp, get that response back from the cab,
Yeah.
man, it changed the way, because like you're adjusting, you're picking in order to get what you're used to in the rehearsal space. At least for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think, yeah, man, energy has a big part to do with all of that stuff, and how guitar sounds, and all all of that shit. To me personally, I think it's huge. And I think that's maybe one of the things that we kind of worry about, like, and you hear this a lot with a lot of new modern death metal, which, like, the people in the band are like far beyond talented, like just
Yeah.
absolute shredders across the board, but they kind of get like blamed for not having any type of emotion, energy into it. You know what I mean? So it's like you could be ultra musical and have the best production, but have no feel, have none of that stuff in it. You know what I
Right.
mean? So like, where do you find the balance? I guess is like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ultimate question.
I this might be overthinking it a little bit, but I was having a conversation with somebody else that I likened it to like the uncanny valley. You know what I'm talking about, like with the visual effects
Hmm.
and movies and stuff
Yeah.
like that,
Hmm.
where your brain is kind of used to processing things in a certain way. So when you kind of deviate from certain things, I mean, the brain will automatically recognize it no matter what you do. Um, Whether that's, phantom limb syndrome, where you lose something and then you think it's still there, or
Hmm.
whether it's a CGI replicant of somebody who's been dead for 20 years, you
Hmm.
know, even the slightest little variances, like the way that their skin reacts to light, um, your brain will automatically pick up on it.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the hyper production age, which, guilty, but um, I think it does. I think certain bands, they get past this point to where it's too much. It's almost like too much information. You know what I mean? Like information
Yeah.
overload for most of us, and not like it's an intellect thing at all. Uh, I'm trying to think of a good example without. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus or anything,
Of course. Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's like so many notes going so fast. It's a little much to process, and maybe if you revisit it enough times, or maybe if you're a good enough guitar player, you can kind of dissect what they're doing. Um, but even at that, even if I know what they're doing, I can sometimes get a little lost in it. Um, and maybe that's a hang up on, like, maybe it's more reflective of me. Like for me, I know kind of my tech death cutoff tends to be like Beneath the Massacre and Brain Drill. Like like
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. And then where everything is very, very. So I don't know if people really do this. I hear people accuse of like running guitar profiles, like MIDI
Yeah. Yeah.
files, and reamping them or something, or running them through amp sims.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've read those things and heard those things too. I personally don't know. I'm not that
right.
savvy when it comes to that shit, so I don't even know how you would, you know what I mean, like do that. But I've heard the same stuff.
I I I can think of some ways, but and like was it like Charles Caswell, the buried alive guy? Um, I've watched one of his videos where he says he'll like when he's recording as he's writing, so he doesn't have time. He's going for like a quick turnaround. He doesn't have time
Yeah.
to perfect everything to the level he would like. So, because he just needs to churn out content, he's a YouTube guy mainly, and
Hmm.
so when he's tracking, he'll do like just like a couple notes at a time, uh, just to get it like robot clean.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would fuck it up more if I tried to do it. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, I told, okay, so our most of our albums were recorded without click tracks and that kind of stuff, right? And
Yeah.
typically how we do it is like I'll play guitar with Neil behind the kit,
Hmm.
right? But my guitar will be silent. It'll be going through, the studio stuff, and Neil
Yeah.
will hear my guitar, you know what I mean, through
Yeah.
there. And then we have the drum tracks, and then the studio engineer will bounce those drum tracks out, and then I'll just track the real guitars
Right.
to those, right? And they'll fluctuate in time because there's no grid, there's no click track or anything like
Hmm.
that. But I remember when we were doing our first album, our other guitar player who was with us, there was like a few parts where he was doing it like that, recording like note for note. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
that section. And he spent, I swear to Christ, he spent like 45 minutes on like a single pinch harmonic. You know what I mean? Because of that, like it was just like he was able to spend 45 minutes on it, therefore he did. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it was a really weird, like I was watching him, and I was like beside myself. I had no idea what to think. But yeah, I could definitely see, people getting caught in that loop, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And at the same time, all those bands and artists who do that kind of stuff, the end result is just still to me. I love listening to all that stuff. I don't care how it's recorded.
Yeah.
For them, if they have the time and like the acumen to do all that stuff, like more power to them. Personally, just like
Right.
it's not for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Uh, Whenever the whole the fake guitarist, the fake internet guitarist thing was viral, um, Lucas Mann was like one of the big names getting kind of thrown under that bus, which that guy's phenomenal. The Rings of
Yeah.
Saturn guy.
That's it. Yeah, I thought it was. And, it's funny. I saw Rings of Saturn open for Suffocation in Montreal, and
Hmm.
and I was pretty much right in line with Lucas Mann, like pretty close to the front. And
Yeah.
to be honest, he wasn't moving a lot because he was playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was clean as shit live, and that was my only exposure to Rings of Saturns was seeing them open for Suffocation. So when all that stuff was coming out, like, well, I guess it's been coming out for a couple of years with them.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised because, like, my only interaction with Rings of Saturn was seeing him kill it live. So, fuck,
I,
who
I
knows?
think I think I think there's a lot of misunderstanding with them. And I watched his videos where he was trying to kind of explain some of the stuff people were nitpicking, like, oh, I only heard sound coming out of the monitors. I didn't hear anything from him, and he was like out of sync. And he was just explaining, he's like, yeah, that's because I have a backing track going through my monitor. That's what you were hearing. That wasn't me. I have in ears. It's like if you want
Yeah,
to hear me, you're going to hear me through the actual PA system,
yeah,
and
makes
that's how.
sense with a band like that has so many different layers, and they have like synths and other things going on. Like, that makes total sense. But let me ask you a question. Do you think that maybe he's behind all of these,
Like it
like,
was
these accusations?
self-perpetuated.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, bad publicity is good publicity
Yeah,
type of thing. Like, kind of leaking a story, and then, like, it creates a bit of buzz and stuff. Like, I mean, that'd be some clever ass marketing. You know what I mean? What do you
it's
think?
it's possible. Because I know one reason why I got so like scandalous so quick was it was that YouTuber Jared Dines that he put out a video like calling out a bunch of people like on Instagram, on YouTube, including Lucas, which they were friends and they've collaborated on stuff before.
Okay.
And Lucas kind of even like gave him like a dude, what the fuck? And his video like kind of like when he did like a response or whatever. Um, so it's one of those things like, well, are they pulling they pulling an Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler kind of thing, and I don't know if anyone will get that reference, but did you get the reference? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a good one. It was a good one, man. You nailed it.
For those that have no clue, watch Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey. It's a good movie, and you'll get what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like those two have never like reconciled, as far as I can see. But it could, I don't know. Maybe it's an inside job.
Yeah. Well, you know, like there's like, you know, you could be split off into two camps about that kind of stuff. One is like, you know, musical or artistic purity versus just like releasing an artistic vision, right? Like what at the end of the day, if they're recording in like half time and then speeding it up, or if you're recording note for note, or if you're recording a pinch harmonic for 45 minutes to get it just right. Like at the end of the day, right, if like the end result, you know, like I don't know, man, there's like you know, whether you can play it or not, or whether you're just releasing a final piece at the same time, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I think as long as when you go to play it live, if you can pull it off, I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like, it's like do whatever you want in the studio. You just better be able to back it up. You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely. You know, there was one band that we played with a couple times over the years, like early on, like back in like 2000 and like 12, 2000, around that time, we played with Archspire when they were just they just did their first like cross country tour in Canada for their first EP, All Shall Align.
Right.
And man, they were just like absolutely super tight at that point in time. And then they, after, you know, their first album, they'd done a tour again, and I'd listened to that album like crazy. And I thought there's no way in hell these guys can be able to do this stuff live, like especially like drumming wise and like all the really tight pauses and all that stuff. And man, they replicated exactly what they were like. Somehow they just like what you heard on the album was like what you were hearing live, and you just have to appreciate how much practice and time goes into, you know, being able to pull that off.
Absolutely. One of the things that impresses me the most, obviously the band, it's one of those bands where across the board they're all phenomenal. One of the things that kind of blows my mind is how their vocalist doesn't get like tongue tied. You know what I mean?
And he's on a completely different level. And have you ever been to an Archspire show like live? Man, okay, so it's an experience because beyond the musicianship, in between songs, Ollie, their vocalist, he's like a stand-up comedian at the same time. So you're getting like he's just the funniest fucking guy out there. But yeah, I totally agree. How he does his vocals in that capacity and how he doesn't trip up.
Right.
I could barely like not trip up just speaking normal. Like I just don't know how he does it. You know what I mean?
Speaking of funny vocalists, I hope nobody cancels me for liking him, but me and my wife saw a Super Joint a few years ago. Whenever they kind of made their little comeback. And,
okay, yeah.
And I think this was before the Dime Bash fiasco, but Phil was absolutely hilarious. I mean, in between songs, he was so funny, and he had like this very dry kind of shit talking sense of humor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's a character, man.
And you know, one of my buddies got to hang out with him on their bus after the show, and he said he was like the nicest dude. Like he was. It's like every other story you hear, he's either like a horrible person or he's like the nicest person on earth. I don't know.
That's fair.
I think he's a pretty polarizing dude, I guess. I don't know.
I would love to hang out with that guy, man. I think he would bring like a whole different element to the conversation that you're like not like an unexpected element to the conversation, you know, depending on where he's at. But
Yeah.
have you listened to his newest project? What's it called? Scour?
Yeah. Uh,
Man, that stuff's wicked. I
I
love
love
that
it.
stuff.
It's like a little super group too at that. Like all the
Yeah,
guys in there are absolutely killer. Um,
yeah, man.
I have a buddy here in West Virginia who's really good friends with John Jarvis, the bass player, and Jarvis was also playing bass for Pig Destroyer for a minute. Um, but they had a band together for a minute, and we're getting ready to drop an album and go on tour. And then two other guys that were in the band just kind of ruined the whole situation for them, and it fell
Mm-hmm.
apart. But
Shit.
Jarvis has kind of kept in touch with them, um, and my buddy, he's a really really sick drummer, and was even talking about kind of keeping him as maybe like a backup for Scour as a drummer.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. That's
and
nice.
and I've got to hear some like kind of cool little like road stories with them, um, and at least according to them, that like Phil is just basically your typical 50-year-old dude. He'll hang around the hotel, go smoke cigarettes, just hang out, don't really party, don't really do nothing. Just typical old dad.
Good old Uncle Phil, just hanging out at the hotel, at, just stuffing his pockets at the continental breakfast. Just get.
It's awesome.
No, but man, that album, that Scour album, man, I've listened to it about a billion times at least, and
It's
it
great.
just sounds wicked. Just absolutely killer stuff. Love it. Probably one of my favorite albums that came out in the last year and a bit, for sure.
To my understanding, you pretty much have to attribute most of the songwriting to Derek Engelman. Engelman, I think is how you say it. He's the real tall guitar player, the one that plays bass for Phil's band, his other band,
Okay.
uh, which he was in Cattle Decapitation. I don't know if you get into them or anything, but
I like their older stuff a lot, man. Like, well,
yeah,
I like Cattle Decapitation for what they're doing, which is pushing the boundaries, in,
right,
you know, in you know, in their stuff. But I love their older material a little bit more personally, like when a little bit more death oriented. I love that stuff. But I think it's Travis Ryan, right?
hmm,
That's his name, the vocalist.
yeah,
So we did a one-off show in Montreal for a band called Nader Sadek, right? It's like a kind of like a super Nader Sadek, and
that's the name.
like an Egyptian guy who he was like the like art director or whatever the fuck for Mayhem for a while, and then he put
Huh.
together this group with Flo from Cryptopsy on drums, Rune Erickson on guitars, and I think on this latest one he had like Carl Sanders do some stuff as well.
Sick.
But Travis Ryan did vocals, I think, on their first EP, and
Okay.
then he played a round of shows with them as well, and we got to open. Absolutely phenomenal. Like I cannot understand how he does some of his just like not really my thing. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
when you're watching this guy in front of you, when like do this stuff. It's just absolutely mind blowing, and you just have to appreciate the talent. And I think with Cattle to Cap, like that's kind of where it's at for me. It's like maybe not 100% my thing, but hard not to appreciate all the talent in that band.
Yeah. And for me personally, uh, like I'm like you. I do love all the old stuff, but I can't help but I replay like the newer stuff way more. I don't. It's kind of mind blowing to me. Uh, and I'm also uh, maybe it's just my deep rooted, you know, musical sensibilities of like incorporating melody where it probably shouldn't be, kind of
Hmm.
thing. Like I'm a big Vital Remains fan, and I always thought Dave Suzuki was probably the best at, you know, working in melodies while still keeping everything heavy.
Dude, uh, another level. You're talking Vital Remains. Yeah, like the Icons of Evil, Dechristenize. Those are some absolutely monstrous albums. Like we're Suzuki's just doing like a lead for like 8 minutes, like
right?
just nuts. But it's yeah, that melody that's going underneath is just ridiculous. So cool sounding, very unique. And
I've
also like
tried.
the
Oh,
I think
sorry.
it
Go
was
ahead.
like, oh sorry, buddy. No, you go ahead, man. I'm like a chatterbox. You go right ahead.
I was just gonna say I try to kind of implement that same mentality with songwriting. Like, did I ever send you that EP? If not, I'll send it to you
No, no,
uh,
no. Send it over, man.
because I had my buddy do a very Glenn Benton style, kind of vocals, mostly
Cool.
like that low bark, and then kind of did like the highs mixed in underneath it,
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's just wicked. I love that
so
stuff.
there's like zero melody, right? Absolutely none to be found anywhere. So I kind of compensate with like the kind of neoclassical kind of leads thrown in underneath. It's try to work it somewhere between Dave Suzuki and Trey Azagtov, maybe. You know,
Okay, yeah, man. That's really cool. That's really cool.
but what were you
I
gonna?
love that. I love well, I said like it's similar. I love Decrepit Birth for that too. Like Matt
Yeah,
Sotelo does some absolutely wicked melodies, under under some riffs and like parts that are atypical, for that kind of stuff. And I think it's really awesome. I love that shit. Crazy.
absolutely. Well, I have like kind of like a little backup question there to kind of help frame this a little bit.
You're an
Um,
organized guy. All right.
Tried it. I try, man. I just try
Man,
not to leave it to dead air.
yeah, you have to, man. Yeah, it's just have to. It's easy to get off track, and you know what I mean. Yeah, it's all good.
Hey, it's good. Just as long as we're not just like sitting here in dead silence going, you know what I mean?
Yeah, could get a bit awkward for sure.
um, so as far as let's talk about like musical goals real quick.
Okay.
Like for you personally, like is there something like a kind of a plateau you're trying to push out of a new technique you're trying to get down, or what have you? And what's some goals you have with the band as of right now?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I think like these days, I'm not able to practice as much, as I want to, or as I was able to when I was younger. You know what I mean? Just it's how life goes. When you're like over 30, like have a kid, got a career, like it just it's harder. You know what I mean? To like set that time aside. So I think one of my goals musically is to really kind of make that again more of a priority, And
Yeah,
so like even right now, like in my office, like now I'm keeping a guitar by my desk. So if I'm on like a conference call with work or something like that, I could just mute those boring bastards and just like pluck away, and then at least kind of keep up with it, which is something that I wish I would have probably done. Because you could go stretches of time, without really playing and stuff like that, and then
yeah,
it's kind of like you're not starting at the same spot again. You're constantly working your way up or back to how you used to play.
right.
So I think one of my musical goals, not really around a technique, but more around just keeping up with the chops, and trying to play at least every single day, which is
Yeah,
not something I was really able to do for a long time. Um, and I think like goals with the band, and as it relates to this kind of stuff, you know, this last album we really added in some elements that were unconventional for us. Like we've been labeled as like brutal technical or technical death metal. Personally, I've always just viewed ourselves as death metal. Like I don't really see the brutal or technical stuff. But in this album, because we were both listening to a lot of black metal, there's a lot of those kind of chord structures that were added in, or some really interesting like upstroke techniques on chords, and doing
yeah,
things that were really different for our style of music. And none of that stuff was like premeditated. It wasn't planned. We didn't say we need to write this part. We didn't pre-write anything and try and force it in.
right.
Everything just was like wherever the jam was going, whatever we chose to kind of come up with and riff out, is what kind of developed. And so I think one of the goals for us we already have another EP already done, and so we're going to be recording that probably starting in October after the album's finally released in September. We're going to go record in October. But I think for the newest album that we're going to start working on, we want to keep it in a specific vein. We don't necessarily want to deviate like we did a lot on this album, but we still want to write it in a very similar way. We're going to jam out, we're going to rehearse, we're just going to riff for hours until something cool sticks. But I think we're setting ourselves some parameters. Like we don't want like as many slow parts, we don't want as many things like that. Yeah. Which is not something we've really done before. We never really cared about that stuff. Just wherever the songs would go is where the songs went. Mm-hmm. But I think as a goal for us as a band for the next album, we're gonna set some particular parameters and we're gonna just write and jam within those parameters. So I think that'll be a challenge for us because that's just not our style. You know what I mean? But that's kind of what we want to do.
Awesome. And you hear about people trying to creatively challenge themselves by putting restrictions on themselves all the time.
Yeah.
Some people argue like the best art will come out of that, really push your creativity.
Yeah, well, I think it'll be a fun challenge because I think by our nature, Neil and I are like we both approach our style of death metal very differently, and we try to like without it being like too forced. We don't want things to sound. We want it to sound familiar, but we want it to sound very unique. Like when you listen to our stuff, like you should be able to pick out, oh fuck, that's a Morbid Angel riff, or that's a Cryptopsy riff, or that's an Origin riff. But it's not like we ripped off the part. It's like you could definitely tell our influence for that particular part. And so we always kind of try to put our own stamp on it and have our own kind of, our own flavor. So I think it'll be really challenging for us to write something in a very specific set of parameters while trying to also keep that fundamental, technique that we have, which is making stuff sound like our own.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah. But no, aside from that, man, I think technique-wise, I mean, like I said, we're not that flashy. We're not that technical. I don't think. I think the technicality, or why we get labeled as technical, is just the intensity of the music. But if you break down the riffs, you break down like what we're playing, it's not that difficult. But I think that the energy really kind of conveys a bit of a technical, brutal element. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
There's some like cool little shreddy bits thrown in here and there.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't. Like I said, I don't fancy myself at all as like a shredder by any means. I'm a riff machine. I could write riffs all day, and I love it. But yeah, man, we never really think of ourselves like as brutal or tech or any of those things that have been tossed onto us. And actually, as a joke, over the years, we've changed, like on social media and other things, our label, right? Just like whenever we'd release an album, someone said, "Oh, this is like a technical death metal album." We're like, "Okay," so then we just start calling ourselves technical death metal. And someone wrote like in a review that this is like the brutal technical death metal album of the year, and we're like, brutal technical death metal. All right, so let's take that one and run with it, right? And then someone wrote that we were relentless death metal at one point. So we're like, okay, well, let's call ourselves relentless death metal.
What is that?
Well, I don't know, man. I thought by definition death metal is pretty relentless, but it's funny, what kind of people will kind of kind of what they hear and what they kind of regurgitate. But for us, yeah, man, we're just death metal. We're just like, now at this point, just two guys who love to write extreme metal or death metal, and just wherever it goes is kind of like our thing.
Do you kind of, obviously the band dynamic has changed over the years. Do you prefer it right now, where kind of like less cooks in the kitchen and that sort of thing? Like you got just less people to divide creative control amongst?
Yeah, like that's a really good question. We actually got asked that question just recently. We did an interview with like this Peruvian blog website called Dargetic, and they asked a very similar question. And like over the years, we started off as like a 5-piece, and went down to a 4-piece, and then now we're a duo. But I think at the end of the day, even in a band like that, there's only ever one or two people that are truly propelling the band forward. Like, I would say there's always one person that's going to look after the business financial aspect of things. There's, it's usually everyone is welcomed and everyone is encouraged to join, and it is a unit thing, like a band is, a group of people. But when it comes to like some of those dynamics, it usually is, propelled by, a handful of people. And for us in Deformatory, it's always been Neil and myself kind of writing stuff and moving things forward. Neil is a highly like efficient individual, like both professionally and then of course as a drummer.
Right.
But he also does like all of our graphic design, like all of our layouts, like a whole like tons of the videos that are done. Like he edited, spent billions of hours doing it. So you have someone like that in the band who is hyper focused, super productive, and just 100% committed. I mean, like, what more do you need? You know what I mean? At the end of the day. So as much as we miss the band dynamic of having more people, we haven't really noticed, a dip in our productivity or anything like that. So it's kind of, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Right.
I miss having other people in the band, obviously, man. Like everyone brings like a different element, something cool, something like unique and different. But at the same time, Neil and I are the guys that wrote pretty much everything in Deformatory anyways. So, it's kind of one of those things.
Are you going to try to bring in another bassist at some point, or?
Yeah, so we had ads out and we put out some feelers. We did a bunch of tryouts too. We had a bunch of people kind of try out to be like another guitar player, another bass player, and we constantly have people reaching out, like friends in the scene and other things like that. Asking if they we need anyone to jump on live and fill in or whatever like that. And because like we don't have any like plans right now to do anything live until everything with COVID smartens up here in Canada, it's not really a focus for us at this point in time. But we throughout all of the years, we've gone through a couple of different guitar players, a handful of bass players, and it's never really difficult to find people who want to jump on board and stuff like that. And our music's not that difficult to play, so like finding someone who could hack our stuff is pretty easy. I think the thing now, Neil and I are older guys, and like we're not like a party band. We're not doing blow. We're not like drinking a 2-4. All that kind of stuff. We have careers. We travel a lot because of our work, and we both have families, and all that stuff. So we're more interested in finding people that are equally passionate about writing death metal.
Right.
But also like have their shit together. You know what I mean? So we're kind of picky and we're not in a rush. So
I feel you. Let's see. Well, kind of, I guess, on that same note, what do you find? And this could be pertaining to gear. This could be kind of pertaining just to your all's live situation and band dynamic in general.
Yeah.
What do you think has been working for you guys so far, and what's something that you're kind of looking? I know it's similar to the goals thing, I guess, but what's something that you're looking to improve on, if for no other reason other than just maybe like your live tone or whatever, or maybe from a technical aspect, something you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. So earlier I was talking that for this album, this is like the first time for me of recording guitars, like DI and all that kind of stuff. For me, it was a huge learning process,
Yeah.
So buying equipment, learning how to hook up to a DAW, and learning, all that stuff it was really it was a good challenge. But to write an album to record an album for the first time, it kind of sucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Alone and all that kind of stuff. But what we ended up doing was we invested a little bit into some recording gear and like a ton of microphones and all sorts of stuff. And for us, the thing that I think we really want to learn to do is, how to properly capture our demos. Because we're basically like when we write a song in a rehearsal space, like we're just gonna hit record like on a cell phone or like an old Zoom recorder, and like it's muffled to shit. We could barely hear it.
Yeah.
So when we come back the next week to like relearn, what we played,
Can't
we
tell
could
what
barely
you're doing.
pick. Yeah, and we end up writing a whole new song. Usually, so we've like lost so many tracks and riffs and stuff like that over the years. So I think
Right.
that's one of the things that we want to be able to do a little bit better is just capture that kind of stuff. So have a better, in rehearsal recording setup, and
Cool.
and just kind of do some of that stuff on our own, which is pretty standard for a lot of bands, but like very new to us. So
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great idea too. Um,
yeah, especially
which
because of how we write. Like we just jam. Like we just
yeah.
just riff, and then most of our songs were written in like one shot. Like
No.
songs on this album, you could listen back to the original like Zoom recorder or cell phone recording, and like not much has changed in that song. Aside from the fact that now there's like two guitars and bass and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So that's kind of how we write. When Neil and I are locked in the pocket, like when we're in the pocket and we're locked in, like we're banging through a song just riff after riff without even thinking about it. But him and I have been playing together for decades, so we have like this we have this like killer chemistry when we get into the room to write stuff. But the thing that sucks is that we don't capture it properly,
Yeah.
because we're just riffing. So it'd be good to fix that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Someone on here suggested GoPros, which not a terrible idea. If like
Yeah,
maybe
man.
like
Thank you.
you could each have like a GoPro or something, then you can actually watch and see what you were playing.
That would probably be even more helpful. So
Right?
thank you very much. Yeah, we'll pick up some GoPros and see what we could do.
Yeah. And not to mention, you do that, and if you actually try to mic and properly capture, what the instruments you're doing, get uploaded to like YouTube or something as like a little instrumental playthrough or
See?
whatever. You know.
Boom. See, this is what we need to tap into the younger generation like you guys and help us along here because yeah, and the thing is like it feels kind of silly, talking about doing it in this way because so many so many artists that we know, even friends that we
Mhm.
know, they're miles ahead. They're recording professional sounding pre-productions like in the
Yeah.
rehearsal space and for us we feel so archaic, and like in that sense. But yeah, so thanks for the suggestions. Yeah, if you guys got any more that's within our realm of hitting one button, just let us know. We'll be happy to take it up.
That's awesome. Uh, do you think you're gonna stay as a one guitar band? You think?
No, man. Like the songs are meant to be two guitars because of the formatory style of riffing. Usually, like there's always two guitar tracks, but most of the time both tracks are playing something completely different. Like even
Right.
if it's like not just harmonies, but even like where you be playing the part on the neck. So for example, if like you're playing on if you're playing a D up on your sixth string,
Hmm.
then the other guitar when they'll be playing a D on their fifth string. So it just like it's the same note, but it's just going to sound just like a little bit different.
Yeah.
Maybe someone will be doing an octave, and we've always written like that. And same thing with the bass. The bass is doing its own thing, and we really like that kind of that style. So our songs are meant to be for two guitar players for sure. So we will eventually, get back to bringing people in and into the fold. But yeah, it's definitely in the works for sure.
Or you could just be like Rings of Saturn and have backing tracks.
Well, listen, I think that's far beyond like our ability. Like that's the one thing we'll never be able to be like. No one will be able to say we cheat because like
Right.
I can't even open up Guitar Pro, let alone like figure out how to, you know what I mean, do anything in there. But yeah, actually, like recording this album and stuff like that, it was because I recorded the bass and the second guitar parts. Well, for a lot of the songs on this album, it was just Neil and I writing, so we'd only ever heard the songs with one guitar. So it was like while recording that we, add in the second guitar layers and the harmonies, and while we were recording, coming up with the bass parts and the bass sound, so it was really neat to hear the songs like flesh out properly in a recording space. And that's the thing that I miss about us having a full band is that you could usually hear that stuff, when you're in a rehearsal space.
Yeah, you could get the full scope of it. I know what you mean. It doesn't sound
Yeah,
complete until you have everybody there.
it's very true, man.
Um, I think we're going on an hour and a half, so I got a couple of things I'm gonna get out, kind of knock out of the way, and then I'll
Sure, yeah.
try to let you go. Uh, of course we're a gear page, so most of the gear oriented stuff. But is there anything that you're eyeing right now that you're looking for?
I have too many eyes when it comes to gear, man. Like the appetite is strong when it comes to it, but uh, I don't know if it's like my midlife crisis or whatever, but I went on a major like custom gear rampage,
Yeah,
for a bit, and I was just buying gear knowing that I could like resell it and make my money back. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like bought like Randall Satan, bought the PV Invective, bought Driftwood Purple Nightmare, like went through all of these like boutique amps just like to say
wow,
I could try them out and stuff, and right now I got two builds that are currently being finalized. I got a guitar build with Charbonneau guitars, which are based in Montreal, not too far from where I am right now. So that's gonna be really sick. I was hoping to have it today, so I could bring it and show you, but it's not quite ready yet. But I
yeah.
cannot wait. I cannot wait for this guitar.
Gotta send me
And
pics when you get a hold of it, man.
oh, dude, it's really wicked. Like, and it's simple. I'm a simple like when it comes to like guitars and stuff. I have a specific. Simplicity is key, right? So like for me, this guitar in particular is just like reverse headstock, six string. We play in B standard tuning, so some 60 gauge strings more or less, like going through, and I have
25 and a half
some.
scale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 25 and a half scale. Because like when I started playing death metal, I was playing like on like a Strat, right? And
Yeah,
so I've just always kind of stuck to Strat like kind of guitars over the years, and that's kind of what I love.
yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So this guitar has all that stuff. It has like this beautiful, beautiful burl maple top, pale moon ebony fretboard. Like just
Ooh.
it looks absolutely dope.
Oh,
So I can't wait for that build. It's like that one's been going on for 9 months, right?
yeah.
Like it's a long build time. It's like he's a one man shop kind of deal.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah. Oh, well, and the thing is, he was like super cool. Like, he tells you up front, like it's gonna be between like 8 to 10 months. So, he's not like
Yeah.
it's gonna be a 16-week build, and then like at 16 weeks tell you, keep leading you on.
Hmm.
So that thing in particular, man, I am so incredibly stoked about. I do have a Kiesel on the way as well, and like I'm not really a fan of like, you know what I mean, like
I know
th- thing,
exactly. Yeah.
things that are trendy and like without headstocks, like all that kind of stuff, like not really my thing. But they recently had like their Aries Kiesel run, and I was able to get in like on the stage one, so like as cheap as possible. And so I have one of those coming, so I'm really curious. And that's gonna be the first guitar I have that only has a single pickup,
Okay.
just the bridge pickup. So I'm kind of stoked on that. And the only other thing, right, is I've been really big into cabinets lately. So,
Uh,
because one of the things about buying a ton of gear the last couple of years and ton of heads is like, they all like I could dial them in pretty much the same, especially for like what we do, right? But the cabinets are really making a big difference. I'm really like at the stage where I'm noticing that the cabinet is and the speaker is making a big difference. And I could get, out of my 5150 or out of my Omega right now, I could get so many different sounds just by switching up the cabinets and switching up the speakers. So I'm eyeing a couple different cabinet makers, some of which are local and or relatively local. And one of them is Luc Lemay from Gorguts.
oh,
So
dude,
so
I've
he
seen some of
makes
his builds.
it's amazing stuff. Amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
So, once I dig myself out of the financial mess I made with buying all this gear, and once my partner is, once we've squared some things up,
Right.
and she's no longer suspicious of what I'm doing on guitar sites, I'm probably gonna go ahead and pull the trigger on one of those. So, but also I saw your interview with the dude from Arachnid Cabinets, and I've always loved
Yeah,
his shit that he does with like LEDs and stuff. So. Fuck, who knows? I may have one of those in the rehearsal space sooner than I think. So
dude, he does some crazy shit.
amazing stuff.
He was telling me about one he's doing for a black metal band, and I think that they were somehow incorporating real blood into it.
Of course, yeah,
I,
makes makes perfect sense.
I'm just like,
Got to
wow,
get that blood tone right out of those
yeah.
vintage 30s shit, soldered with like goat blood. Yeah,
I just picture like a guar or something where that just like blood shoots out of the cabinets or something. I don't know. Like,
yeah, it's amazing, man. And like that's what we were talking about earlier, right? Is like the artistry behind like not only music but like everything that goes behind the music, like gear, the imagery, everything, man. There's so much investment and energy and money and all that stuff that goes into it.
oh
And
yeah,
at the end of the day, like not only like from a tonality perspective does it change your approach and your playing, but imagine how you would feel with that, blood cabinet, behind you on stage. Like it's going to empower you in a completely different way, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So
for
all
sure.
that stuff I think is super important to a player's tone and their approach to picking and all that stuff. I think it's killer.
Yeah, that's why I will never ditch like a cab on stage for in-ear monitors or none of that. Uh, One, I just don't trust it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but also, it just feels like it's just completely, for me anyway. I've tried in-ears before, and like for some other kind of gigs, and I couldn't possibly fathom trying to do that. I don't like it. Period. I could definitely not fathom trying to do it for metal. Um,
Yeah.
Awful.
I hear what you mean, man. We've over the years we've like toggled back and forth between whether we should invest in in-ear systems because you're at the mercy sometimes of like a sound guy or
Mhm.
and most of the time the sound guys that we deal with or sound girls doesn't matter, like have all been fantastic. But you always get that crotchety old guy, right? You always get that guy
Yeah.
with like the ponytail and the receding hairline, who's wearing like a brown pair of slacks, who like doesn't want anyone moshing and going near the like we've all had that sound guy. And it's in those shows where you can't hear shit and like you don't know what the other guitar like you know what I mean? That's in those moments you're like, fuck, we need some ear we need some goddamn in-ear monitors for this situation.
If
But
you could get everyone on board, because I've seen some people where the entire band is basically all in one rack, and that's like modelers, the in-ears,
yeah,
everything. It's just all in one big rack case that you can roll around,
yeah.
and that'd be killer if you could pull it off. Um, I don't know. It's all, but and I've also been at shows like you're talking about where every song the mix sounds different because he's just messing with it the entire set.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
like it's one of those things, like uh, I think yeah, in years like we have friends and bands who swear by them, and like Archspire is like a good example of that. When we
yeah.
first played with them, when they first started, they didn't have any of that stuff, and then when
Oh,
we
wow.
played with them around like on their first full length album tour, they had got the whole in-ear stuff, and I was talking to Dean, I was like, "What do you think?" He's like, "Dude, I would never go back. I don't know how we played like that without them before." So there are some bands that absolutely swear by them, even in our style of music.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they'll you could get used to just about anything. But I think I'm with you on that. I love the amp being behind me. I love feeling the amp. I love not being able to hear for a couple days, afterwards. All that
Right.
stuff I think is just part of it. I love it.
Uh, I think because like I'm not uh, totally against like modelers or nothing like that. Like I'm undecided if I'm going to go with the Mesa and use the HX Stomp for my,
Hmm.
in conjunction with it, and keep the
Yeah,
Moto valve as my backup. Because it's like, oh, that's one more thing I have to haul around. I could just bring the power amp
that's
and just,
right. Yeah.
you uh, don't have it completely dialed in like perfect yet, so we'll see. Not to mention, I've kind of like you, where the last like year or so, I've been on just a gear spree, and
Yeah.
like I've got mainly pedals, but I've gotten like three. I've gotten a 5-string bass and 2 guitars. Well, I guess the third guitar is on its way, but I'm going to try to sell one. Uh, oh shit, it's worse than I thought.
Yeah.
Um, but like I got all these like custom pedals now, and it's like,
Yeah.
am I really not gonna use these? Am I really just gonna use a modeler and not use all this custom shit I have laying around?
Dude, I hear you. I hear you. And like for Deformator, we have we play through Eris Effects pedals, right?
Yeah,
So like I've been playing through the Savage Drive through all of their versions throughout the years, and absolutely love their stuff. And when we had our previous album Malediction, we actually got Richard at Eris to build a custom boost and delay pedal, right?
hmm,
That was called the Malediction pedal. So just something for leads, right? So you could get that clean boost, get some sweet delay and stuff like that, and it really kind of punch through live.
yeah,
And and those things are absolutely killer. And I love that pedal, especially for live because it's simple.
all right,
But then our guitar player, he's much more technically proficient. He's the guy that recorded a lot of our stuff, right? Like he's got his stuff together. And he was playing through like Axe Effects stuff, and I'll tell you,
oh,
to me, it sounded live, sounded just as good. And his stuff
cool,
was simple. He had a whole simple setup, and
yeah,
so both were simple, both sounded really good, and just a matter of like personal preference. For
right.
me, I'm gonna lug that heavy ass 5150 and that Mesa cab up those stairs, until I can't no more. I think personally.
Funny you mentioned the Eris thing. That's how I discovered your all's band, was that video you
Oh,
did
cool.
a few years back for the Malediction pedal.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, man, that's awesome.
So I've
Yeah, I
been a
forget I
fan
forget why
since
why
that
we
one.
did those. I think it was like at the time we were on CDN Records, like that label, and I think like
Yeah,
they were really trying to push us they're trying to push us to help their YouTube page and like get more content out from every band, which was really cool.
right.
But yes, yeah, so I think that's when we kind of did like those rig rundown pages and stuff like that. But yeah, Eris Effects, man, totally wicked. Out of all the pedals, like just like like gear, I was talking about amps and stuff like that, but pedals, I get pedals. Like I love guitar pedals. I love overdrive pedals. Um, but I keep going back to Eris Effects every single time. Like right now I'm playing through the parallel overdrive of theirs. I just
Yeah.
absolutely love it. It's wicked.
What is the difference? I haven't looked into that one as much as I have the Savage. What are the differences on that one?
So this one, so do you know like the Direwolf overdrive pedal
Yeah.
from Highwind Amplification? So it has like first of all like some diode clippings and all that kind of stuff. So
So
on the parallel, you could actually toggle between like overdrive or boost or in between. So you could do a blend between the two, right? Of that. So it'll give you like if you want it to just be like a clean boost, you can. If you want to be completely overdriven, you can. Just by toggling that switch. It has a
Okay.
built-in gate, which is also really kind of
Yeah.
cool. And then you could also switch between different like mid ranges, so like kind of like darker, brighter, bassier, all of these like little tiny switches. So with your overdrive, like for the parallel overdrive in particular, you could go through like hundreds of different combinations
Hmm.
of that. And I'll tell you, like usually I don't care for that kind of stuff, right? Because again, I love to
Yeah.
keep it simple, right?
Right.
Playing a show and one of those settings is messed up, like it's whatever, it sucks.
Yeah.
But it's totally worth it with the parallel, in my opinion, to just spend a bunch of time on it because it's very versatile and
Really.
just so much drive on tap. So if you want to really push an amp,
Hmm.
definitely go with the Aris FX parallel overdrive.
I I've got now I've got like three. Have you seen anything from Michael Klein Audio?
I don't think so. No.
Uh, he's fairly new, but like he's been doing a lot of work for like I think he's done some builds for like Eric Rattan, Tom Warrior. He's got his signature pedal with Sammy Dway now.
Hmm.
I think he's even built for Gary Holt. Just he's just one
Oh,
guy.
cool. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and he's my dude. I promote him all the time, and he's
yeah.
he's he's hooked me up like a bunch. I got this one pedal of his called the Chrysogrim, and it's supposed to be kind of like an end-all be-all dirt pedal. Like if you want to use it as a boost or overdrive, you can. And it's got like a 3-band EQ,
Oh, it's
uh,
wicked. Yeah.
and then like a attack knob, kind of like dial in how aggressive you want it,
Hmm.
and then course level and drive. But it's got enough gain on tap to where you could just run it as a full-blown distortion pedal in front of a clean amp if you wanted.
Sweet. Yeah, that's wicked.
And then I just this week I got a cup, my next two pedals from him. Um, uh, got
Well,
a
definitely send me some links to that stuff because again,
sure.
never have enough pedals.
I actually got two right here offhand. Um, the ball gag noise gate, which check out that
Oh,
green
that
crackle.
dude, that's wicked. That's sick. I love that the knob has a crackle on it too.
I know, right?
Yeah,
And
that's looking dope.
and I went for like the other one is in like green and black, and they all have you can like he really will customize them for you too. And
Perfect.
mine and my wife's favorite band is Typo Negative, so I went for a typo theme on both
Cool.
my pedals. The other one has Black Number One. And I did like the little wraparound text, like their albums.
Hey, that's wicked. Nice little touch, dude.
This one's Everything Dies, you know. And I'm sure you've probably messed with like the Fort and Grind or the 33, like all those
Yeah.
TC preamp clones.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't sell one, but he made one for fun and hooked me up with it. And it's
Nice.
it's basically the TC preamp. You can switch between like the TC and the Fortin, and then you from the Grind to the 33.
That's
So
all. That's awesome.
and
Yeah, please, definitely send me the link, especially yeah,
absolutely,
before my
uh,
wife finds out.
yeah, for sure, dude. He makes awesome stuff. Really, really killer.
That's
Um,
wicked.
all right, one last thing, and I'll let you go, man.
Yeah. Thanks again, by the way, right, for having a conversation. It's just good to chat about death metal and gear and all sorts of random stuff. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know I have like kind of like a little bit of a backup format, for when things go off the rails or something. But I try to keep these pretty casual and loose. I almost more like a podcast than an interview, I guess. because I always find those more enjoyable to watch personally. Like, I like hearing people talk about, just whatever their life history or just life in general and the nerdy shit,
Well,
Uh,
a lot of people like listening to it, man. So I think I watched that Frozen Soul interview of yours maybe twice because yeah, it was just super. Like it was just a good
wow.
conversation, man. And you
Thank you.
guys just were, yeah, it was awesome. So keep up the good work for sure.
Hell yeah. Thank you, man. Um, all right. We will close with the same way I close all of these. Give me your top four death metal choices. Like, give me your big four. And I don't need, you don't have to give me the default, the Florida Big Four or nothing like that. Just, whoever you
So
dig.
you're talking bands, right? Like not albums, bands.
Bands.
Okay, all right. So listen, number one for me, without a doubt, Cryptopsy.
Okay.
Okay, up. I'll preface it though. Up until Whisper Supremacy.
Okay.
Up until that album. I love everything that they've done. Even some parts off of the album that no one should talk about, The Unspoken King. There are some pretty killer tracks off that, but I'll say my favorite band or the top band for me in that sense, Cryptopsy for sure.
Okay.
Um, Second, I would have to go with Hate Eternal.
Sick.
I, th-
Okay.
I think you just can't go wrong with Hate Eternal.
All right.
Um, Number three, I think I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna go new school. I'm gonna say Cytotoxin.
Okay.
The, their album Radiophobia, to
Yeah.
me, flawless album. Absolutely just crushing. Just an amazing. Just that album alone puts them for me in the top three. I think they did something really cool there.
It,
And then from that, I would probably have to I'd have to go with Cannibal Corpse. Again, even their latest album, man. Like, say what you will, just sheer consistent death
for sure.
metal.
For sure.
You just can't go wrong with them. So yes, I would go Cryptopsy, Hate Eternal, Cytotoxin, and Cannibal Corpse.
Very respectable. The cytotoxin, that one was cool. I think Cannibal Corpse has been on everybody's list, as it probably should. Which I bought the new album on vinyl and got a T-shirt and all that stuff. It's my favorite since Kill, I think.
That's a wicked album. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
so
really good.
I just picture people windmilling until their neck snaps. Like every time I listen to it, I don't know, just so fast and thrashy. It's great.
Dude, I
Uh,
can't wait for them to play shows. I don't know when they're ever going to come back to Canada because our government doesn't have their shit together. We're not having shows for a while, but I will
uh,
sneak across that American border to go watch them play because I can't wait to see this stuff live. Yeah, it's gonna be
uh,
wicked.
and I love Pat O'Brien, but I mean, I got to see Eric whenever they were opening for Slayer. I got to see Eric with them, and it sounded just as awesome as all the times that I saw them with Pat.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
like Eric did a really good. I mean, when he takes a solo, you can tell it's him. But other than that, he's done a really good job trying not to like come in and take over. Like I think
yeah.
he respects the legacy of the band and the sound. Like he knows they've already, gotten this thing going on since the '90s. So, uh,
Yeah. And Corpse like did the best job with bringing Rutan in. Like,
oh yeah,
O'Brien, like, man, it's a shame what happened, and that stuff happens,
yeah,
you can't do anything about that. But like, leave it to Corpse to find the one person that no one would hate. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
no, I don't know anyone personally that was like, oh, Rutan, what a goddamn awful choice that was. Like, no
right.
way. Just absolutely the best possible replacement for O'Brien.
I always compare it to Slayer finding Gary Holt. It's like
Yeah,
when
man.
when Jeff
Yeah,
passed, everyone was like, "No, can't do it. You can't go on. You need
that's
to break
right.
up now." It's like, don't insult Hammond's legacy. And then they were like, well, what about Gary Holt? And everybody immediately went, ooh, Gary Holt.
Yeah.
You know? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. And obviously, like Eric Rutan's solos have always been some of my favorite because again,
oh yeah,
fucking unorthodox. Like
very
just when you think
tasteful.
you got, oh yeah, man, and just when you think you got it figured out, boom, goes like
Yeah,
goes like this. You know what I mean? And I love like the Rip and Corpse stuff, and I love like what he did off of a Covenant,
hmm
or sorry, Domination. Some of his leads there were just absolutely wicked. So I think, yeah,
for
man,
sure,
like Corpse couldn't have chosen anyone better than that.
absolutely. And Cytotoxin was such a cool left field choice too. By the way, them and like Surreption, I feel like kind of are on that same wavelength where
Yeah.
it's like it's technical, but it's not like off-putting. Does that make
Well,
sense? Like,
yeah, I totally agree with you. The thing with Cytotoxin that I love is you could remember the riffs. Like,
yeah,
it's ultra techy, ultra fast, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, but there is so many hooks and catches, and like that's at the end of the day, right?
love that.
I think that's a testament to like just I just that album in particular. When I heard it, I had no expectations, right?
Yeah,
When it came out, and it was actually a member in the band who introduced me to it at that time when Radiophobia came out, and it blew my mind. I must have listened to that album in my car for like a year straight, like blaring so loud. Because yeah, that album is just so wicked, so wicked.
right. Well, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on here. This was fun.
Dude,
Uh,
thank you, man. And thank you, like, not only for this, but for everything you do with the page. And, like, I know you must be getting, like, inundated with submissions and stuff like that. And everyone's just, like, waiting to see, what you're going to post. But, man, you're doing a great thing. And everyone, I could tell you that, man, everyone really appreciates it. So thank you so much.
well, that's killer. I appreciate hearing that, man. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And in the future, when this goes on YouTube, thank you all for checking it out. Follow us, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And keep sending in those rigs.
Absolutely. And take care, guys. Cheers.
Later, man.